The night my family told me to leave, I learned how fast love can turn into power. My name is Sky. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania where people smiled in public and hid the truth at home. Our house always looked perfect. White walls, clean windows, family photos smiling back at anyone who visited. But inside that house, I learned early that I was never the favorite. My parents, Tom and Linda, treated my younger brother, Evan, like he was made of gold. He could fail classes, quit jobs, and waste money, and they would still defend him. If I got straight A's, it was expected. If I came home late from work, I was questioned. If something went wrong, somehow it was always my fault. I stopped fighting it. I stopped asking why. At 16, I got my first job at a grocery store. I bought my own clothes. I paid my phone bill. I learned to depend on myself because no one else ever showed up for me. My grandmother noticed. She used to squeeze my hand and whisper, "You're stronger than they think." She was the only one who saw me. College was my escape. I studied hard and earned my place without help. When the acceptance letter came, I sat on my bed and cried quietly so no one would hear. At dinner, I told them. My dad nodded once. My mom asked Evan if he wanted seconds. That was the moment I knew. Nothing I did would ever be enough. After graduation, I came back home to save money. Evan had already moved back after dropping out. Suddenly, the house felt smaller, tighter. Every bill was too expensive. Every problem was somehow connected to me. If Evan needed money, they looked at my paycheck. One night, my dad called us into the living room. Evan leaned back, relaxed. I felt uneasy before anyone spoke. "We think it's time you move out," my dad said, calm and cold. "You're an adult now." I looked at him in shock. "I help with rent. I buy groceries." My mom crossed her arms. "You bring tension into this house." Evan smirked. "You act like you're better than us." That hurt more than being told to leave. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I packed my bags that same night. I took my clothes, my laptop, and a small folder I had hidden for years. Bank papers, old letters, and one note from my grandmother telling me never to let anyone use me. I slept in my car for 2 nights. It was cold and lonely, but I felt something strange too. Freedom. On the 3rd day, I rented a small room above a barber shop in Pittsburgh. The heat barely worked, the stairs creaked, but it was mine. I found a job at a shipping office. Long hours, hard work. I stayed quiet and paid attention. I learned how money moved, how records worked, and how people covered their tracks. Then one day, a letter arrived. It was meant for my parents, but forwarded to me by mistake. It talked about a trust, my grandmother's trust, and my name was on it. The money was supposed to help me start a life. Instead, it had been moved, taken, used for family needs. I sat on the floor and laughed, not because it was funny, but because everything finally made sense. They didn't just kick me out. They took from me first. That night, I opened a notebook and wrote one line. Stay calm, stay smart, get back what's mine. They thought pushing me out would break me. They didn't know it was the moment I started fighting back. The moment I stopped feeling sorry for myself was the moment I started paying attention to everything. Living above the barber shop wasn't easy, but it was honest. The floor shook every time someone walked up the stairs. The smell of hairspray and coffee filled the air every morning. I didn't mind. For the first time, the space around me didn't feel heavy with judgment. I worked full-time at the shipping office and picked up extra hours whenever I could. I said yes to every task. Filing, tracking invoices, fixing small errors no one else wanted to touch. People thought I was just being helpful. What I was really doing was learning how money moved and how mistakes were hidden. At night, I studied. I watched free videos. I read old finance books from the library. I learned how trusts worked. I learned how property records could be changed. I learned how people used family names to move money quietly. The more I learned, the clearer things became. My grandmother's trust wasn't small. It wasn't meant to disappear. It was supposed to sit untouched until I was ready. My parents had never planned to tell me. They thought I would never ask. I didn't call them. I didn't give them any sign. Silence was my shield. Then my phone rang one night. It was my mother. "Sky," she said, soft and sweet. "We're struggling a little. Evan needs help. Can you send some money?" I almost laughed. "You told me to move out," I said calmly. "I did." "You're being dramatic. Family helps family." I looked around my small room. The peeling paint, the second-hand chair, the cold window. "Family doesn't steal," I said, and hung up. The calls didn't stop. My dad, my mom, Evan once, late at night, pretending to be kind. "You don't want us to lose the house, right?" he said. That's when I knew something was wrong. I took a day off work and went to the county office. I asked for records tied to my name. The clerk printed them without question. She didn't know she was handing me the truth. There it was. The trust had been used as a loan, then another, then drained, all in my name. My signature was there, but it wasn't mine. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. This wasn't favoritism anymore. This was a crime. I spoke to a legal aid office next. I didn't tell my whole story at first. I showed them the papers. I watched the lawyer's face change. "They assumed you wouldn't notice. That happens more than you think." I nodded. "What do I do?" "You stay patient, and you do everything the right way." That night, I walked along the river. The city lights reflected off the water, broken but bright. I thought about every time I stayed quiet, every time I let them take a little more. Not anymore. I started saving every extra dollar. I opened accounts in my name only. I locked my credit. I copied every document and stored it in 3 places. I wasn't angry all the time anymore. Anger burns fast. I was focused. Focus lasts longer. They still thought I was gone, still thought I was weak, still thought they could pull me back when they needed me. They had no idea I was learning their game better than they ever had. And when the time came, I wouldn't raise my voice. I would let the truth speak.
The best revenge begins when the other side thinks you've already lost. By the time spring came to Pittsburgh, I had 2 versions of myself. The one my family knew, quiet, distant, struggling, and the real one, watching, planning, building something they couldn't see. I let them believe the lie. I answered my mother's calls once in a while. I sounded tired. I complained about work. I said rent was hard. That was important. People like my parents relaxed when they thought I was still beneath them. Meanwhile, my real life was moving fast. At the shipping office, my boss noticed my work. I was careful. I never showed off. I just fixed problems before they became disasters. One afternoon, he asked me to stay late. "You see things other people miss," he said. "Ever think about management?" I nodded like it was no big deal, but inside I smiled. Power doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it comes with access. With my lawyer's help, I filed quiet requests. No letters to my parents, no warnings, just paperwork moving through offices they didn't even know existed. I learned something important during that time. People who cheat often cheat the same way again. And my parents had. They used my name to cover loans. They moved money between accounts. They trusted that no one would look closely. Why would anyone? I was the daughter they pushed aside. I started visiting home on weekends. Not often, just enough. My mom hugged me like nothing had happened. My dad avoided my eyes. Evan acted nervous. He talked too much. That told me everything. One evening, Evan let something slip. "We might refinance the house," he said, trying to sound casual. I kept my voice calm. "Why?" "Just easier," he replied. Refinance. Translation, they were running out of money. That night, I drove back to Pittsburgh and called my lawyer. "They're desperate," I said. She paused. "Then we wait." Waiting was the hardest part. I wanted to confront them. I wanted them to admit it. But revenge isn't about release. It's about results. I took a second job helping a small business owner clean up her books. She taught me things no class ever could: how to read between numbers, how to spot lies in spreadsheets, how to stay calm while others panic. One night, my grandmother's old note fell out of my folder. "Don't rush justice. Let it walk to you." I smiled. She always knew. Then the call came. My dad sounded different, sweaty, shaky. "We need you to sign something," he said. "Just a form. It helps the family." I already knew what it was. Another loan, another attempt to use my name. "I'll think about it," I said. 2 days later, I met them at a bank office. I dressed simple, no makeup, no confidence on display. The banker slid the papers across the desk. I didn't sign. Instead, I slid my own folder back. Inside were copies of every record, every forged signature, every transfer. The room went silent. My mother's face turned pale. Evan stood up too fast. "You lied," I said calmly. "You stole from me." My dad tried to speak. Nothing came out. "I'm not here to yell," I continued. "I'm here to end this." The banker excused himself. Security was called. Lawyers followed. I stood up, steady and quiet. "You kicked me out because you thought I was weak, but you made one mistake." I looked at each of them. "You taught me how you work." I walked out before anyone could stop me. Behind me, the trap closed. The truth hurts most when it's spoken out loud in a quiet room. The days after the bank meeting felt unreal. I went to work like nothing had changed. I drank my coffee, answered emails, laughed at small jokes. But inside, I knew something big was moving. My phone stayed silent for 2 days. Then the calls started. First, my mother. I didn't answer. Then my father. I let it ring. Then Evan. Over and over. Finally, I picked up when my mom called again. "Please," she said before I could speak. Her voice was thin. "We need to talk." "We already did," I replied. "No, this is different," she said. "You embarrassed us." I almost laughed. "You embarrassed yourselves," I said. "I just stopped protecting you." She went quiet. Then the anger came. "You think you're better than us now?" she snapped. "You think money makes you powerful?" I took a deep breath. "No, truth does." That night, my lawyer called. The bank had frozen several accounts. An investigation was open. My name was cleared from the loans. The house was at risk. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. A week later, I went back to my hometown. Not to apologize, not to beg. I went to get my things. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The porch light flickered. The lawn hadn't been cut. Inside, everything felt tense. My father sat at the table, staring at his hands. Evan stood near the window, jaw tight. My mother hovered, arms crossed. "You ruined this family," she said as soon as I walked in. I set my box on the floor. "You did that long before I spoke up."
My father finally looked at me. His eyes were tired. "We were under pressure," he said. "We meant to fix it." "You had years," I answered. "You chose yourselves every time." Evan stepped forward. "You could still help us," he said. "Drop the case. Talk to your lawyer." I looked at him, the golden child who never faced blame. "Why?" I asked. "So you can do it again?" He didn't answer. I walked through the house one last time. My old room was exactly the same, like I never mattered enough to change it. I took my box and turned to leave. At the door, my mother spoke again, softer this time. "If you walk out, don't come back." I paused. I already left. This is just me finishing. Outside, the air felt lighter. 2 weeks later, the story spread. Not loudly, not on social media, just through legal notices and quiet whispers. People in town started asking questions. The family name wasn't Crean anymore. Evan lost a job offer. My parents were forced to sell the house. None of it was done by me directly. That was the best part. Revenge didn't come from shouting or ruining them with my own hands. It came from letting the truth stand where lies used to be. One evening, I sat alone in my apartment, watching the city lights. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. And freedom, I learned, is the most painful thing to take from people who thought they owned you. The final win came when I stopped needing them to lose. Months passed and life grew quiet in a way I had never known. Not empty, peaceful. The kind of quiet that comes when no one is pulling at you, blaming you, or asking you to be smaller. I moved to a new place across the city, a clean apartment with big windows and no memories attached. I bought my first couch on my own. I hung photos I liked, not ones meant to impress anyone. Every small choice felt powerful. At work, things changed fast. I was promoted, not because of pity, not because of drama, because I earned it. My boss called me into his office one Friday afternoon. "We're opening a new division," he said. "I want you to run it." I nodded, steady on the outside, shaking on the inside. After years of being told I wasn't enough, someone finally saw what I could do. That night, I celebrated alone, not out of sadness, but pride. I cooked dinner, poured a glass of wine, and sat by the window watching the city move. No family phone calls, no guilt. Just me. A few weeks later, I heard the final news. My parents had sold the house. The investigation ended with fines and repayment plans. No jail, no drama, just consequences. Evan moved to another state. The family that once stood together by stepping on me no longer stood at all. I felt something unexpected. Relief. One evening, I received a letter. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. My mother. She wrote about regret, about stress, about how things got out of control. She asked if we could talk, if we could fix things. I read it once, then again. I didn't hate her. I didn't forgive her either. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. Some doors don't need to be slammed. They just need to stay closed. On the 1-year mark of the day I was pushed out, I took a drive. I didn't plan it. I just followed the road until the city disappeared and trees took over. I parked near a lake and sat on the hood of my car. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who stayed quiet to keep peace, who took blame to keep love. That girl didn't deserve what happened to her. But she did give me something. She gave me the reason to change. Revenge didn't turn me cold. It didn't make me cruel. It made me honest, strong, aware. I didn't win because my family fell apart. I won because I built a life where they no longer had power. As the sun went down, my phone buzzed. A message from a friend asking if I was coming to dinner. I smiled and typed back, "On my way." I started the engine and drove forward. Not angry, not broken, not weak, just free.